Hey, welcome to RadicalTribe.com. My name is Fahim Musa. I'm the founder and host of Radical Tribe, the Freedom Show. This is where you learn to escape 9 to 5 and create your own freedom by starting a business. Do you have a day job, a 9 to 5 job, or a corporate job that you completely despise? Do you ever feel that you're going in to work every day and doing something that is completely meaningless to you and doesn't allow you to be who you truly are? And do you feel that you're going to be stuck in that cubicle for the rest of your life and there's no way out? Well, you're probably right. I'm joking, of course. Of course that's not right. This is why we do what we do here at Radical Tribe, so that you know what to do to get out of that situation, that exact situation that I described to you. Okay, my guest for today is Joanna Penn of thecreativepenn.com, who did exactly that. She made a radical change in her life by going from IT consultant to author, a fiction author. And in this case study, she describes her exact journey. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it's completely possible. Joanna talks about all her failures along the way and how she discovered what she was meant to do in her life. She describes her aha moment, like a lot of people on this show do as well. So if you're in that same situation, then you've got to watch this case study. Joanna also talks a lot about the self-publishing industry and what it takes to be a successful self-published author. So author entrepreneur, I must add. So if that's what you want to do, then you want to take a look at this case study, because there's so many insights that Joanna delivers, and she will be the right inspiration for you to make that real change in your life and create your own freedom. Here's Joanna. Joanna, thank you so much for joining me, and it's great to have you here at Radical Tribe. So why don't we start off with your background? I'm interested to hear what you were doing before you started working for yourself.
Well, I was out of university. I started management consulting. So I worked for Accenture and IBM and Capgemini and all those kind of big companies. Worked with a lot of people in India from Infosys, and basically I was a corporate consultant, and then I went freelance as a contract IT consultant. But I never really enjoyed it. I did it for 13 years, but it wasn't very creative. I'm sure you know. I mean, putting in IT systems, it just doesn't have that creativity side to it. Income is very good. The people are great, but in terms of life happiness, it's not the best, I guess.
Okay, and so you did this for about 13 years, right? In management consulting.
Yeah.
And so when did you start working in the corporate world?
1997.
Okay, and so what made you realize that you wanted to do something else? You said it wasn't the most creative thing out there, but what was going through your mind, like in terms of next steps? Like, can you walk us through that process and what you were thinking at that stage?
Yeah, sure. Well, I tried. I never thought I wanted to be an IT consultant. It was just something that I got into after uni, and then it just carried on as one does. And I travelled. I went to Australia, New Zealand, and I tried starting a whole load of other businesses on the side. So I started I had a dive boat, scuba diving company. I tried doing property investment. I tried running a travel business, travel website. So I tried a lot of things over the years, and each time something went wrong. Hopefully people realize that with a scuba diving business, you need a boat and good weather and a lot of equipment. And so that business was a physical business that was, and I realized from that I wanted to do something digital and online. And that's when I started to research blogging and got to know the kind of online space. But I always wrote. I always wanted to be a writer. And really that kind of that solidified more once I'd failed at all these other businesses. So I think, like many people who end up doing something that works, there were a lot of failures on the journey before I got to the point of it actually working.
Hey, this is fun. This is good. So let's. I just want to go back to the point where you quit your corporate job and then you started a business. So did you just quit cold turkey and then you went off to Australia? And did you start the business in Australia, or did you come back to London?
Well, I was in New Zealand, but all those businesses were started on the side.
Okay. Oh yeah, you mentioned that you
because
started
they
on the
needed
side.
funding.
Okay. So you had your job.
Yeah, so I've never taken any funding from anywhere. I've always funded my business adventures myself through my salary and, you know, what I earned from IT consulting. And as you know, it pays very well. So I basically spent what I earned on starting other businesses on the side. But in general, well, all the other businesses before this one didn't really work. So I never gave up my job full stop. I always had it going alongside. And because I was a contractor towards the end, I went 4 days a week. So that really helped me. But I didn't actually give up contracting until September 2011. So I've only been full-time on this 18 months, but this time it's actually working. So I think that's probably one lesson for people, is to definitely start their business on the side, and also don't worry if it doesn't work out the first time. I think I really don't know anybody whose first business just works and they can change their life just like that. So, you know, and also often we don't really know what we want. So, you know, like, I love scuba diving, so I thought, oh, a scuba diving business will be great. But doing something you love doesn't necessarily translate to a viable business.
I wanna deep dive into that scuba diving business, no pun intended. But before that, I wanna ask you if you've always been the entrepreneurial type. Were you the kid growing up who had a lemonade stand down the street, or where did this entrepreneurial sort of streak come from?
No, I wasn't. I'm very traditional. You know, I went to Oxford. I got very good grades. My degree is in theology, religion. So I never was that entrepreneurial person. But what I did know is that I was totally miserable in my job. I don't think I've ever liked hierarchy very much. I don't have much of a respect for a hierarchy, so I didn't really fit into any company very well. You know, I didn't like to be told what to do. So even though I didn't know anything about entrepreneur, I mean, my parents are not business people, they were teachers. So I didn't have any training around money and earning things out of the mainstream, and that's been a very big journey for me. And I would say that to people as well, is, you know, reading a book like Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, Robert Kiyosaki, helped me change my idea around money and around the fact that it doesn't have to come in every month and be the same amount. It can be different amounts, and, you know, even things like that I had to learn from the beginning. So no, I'm not a born entrepreneur. I think it's just something that's happened very slowly, I think.
Yeah, that's great testimony. If for someone watching this, you know, there's a lot of like myths around that say, you know, you either have it or you don't. Entrepreneurs are born, not made. But, you know, with that, I think that you have, it's a fantastic example that you talked about of how you slowly acquired the skill and you tested things out, some of which didn't work out, and then you finally found out what you were meant to do, and now you're doing it. So this is great. So I just want to talk about the scuba diving business for a second. Like, where did that idea come from? That's just, you're an IT contractor, and then you started a scuba diving business on the side. Talk about that experience. I'm interested to know what happened there.
Well, I'm actually a dive master, so I am I'm a scuba diving dive master.
Okay.
And my husband at the time was a scuba diving instructor and a boat skipper. So I was living in New Zealand in the around the Poor Knights Island, which is amazing. And we had some friends. So it wasn't just a random idea. I was already doing that for fun. It was just, can we make something that's fun into a business? But essentially it cost us a lot of money and went very badly. So I would definitely say, like, my big lesson learned is don't do a business where you need lots of physical equipment, like physical assets, and also 'cause you need a lot of money. And also with the price of fuel, that can go up and down every week. So if you use a boat or you have a vehicle, the cost of fuel will directly impact your profit, because you can't just change your prices based on the price of fuel. And then also, if you have a weather dependent business, so if you work in tourism and scuba diving is weather dependent, then you have these so many things you can't control, that it just is a terrible business model. So if anyone's thinking of doing like a physical business, really think about your fixed and variable costs. Whereas of course, on the internet, our costs are so low, it's ridiculous. So that was a big lesson learned for me.
So, but what about this travel business that you talked about? Was that after the scuba diving business?
No, it was before. Because I moved to New Zealand, I was doing so many, people would, friends from England would say, oh, I'm coming out to New Zealand, can you organise everything for me? So I started to set up a website and things where people could buy itineraries. But that was in around 2000, before the internet was much easier to use, before WordPress, before, I had to pay somebody to build a website. So again, it wasn't, and also there wasn't the profit in it. So I tried doing something internety, but too early in the game, really. And I've never been a programmer. So I say I was in IT, but I wasn't a programmer. I was more like a functional consultant, a business consultant. And so I didn't want to program. So it was kind of too early for that business. And also with with all the other travel websites going on, it was just not going to happen.
I love the story, Joanna. This is so interesting. Okay, so tell me what happened. Tell me what happened after that, and how you started, the whole writing thing and the internet business and all that stuff. I'm interested. So just keep talking.
Well, I moved to Australia and carried on IT contracting and having fun and, living my life, and was still miserable. And so I decided to try and find out what I really wanted to do, because I'd been down all these, I did this property investment as well. That went wrong. Everything went wrong. It was hilarious, but I was never going to give up because I wanted to change my life. So what I decided to do was what I can do, which is study. I'm very good at studying. So I decided to write a book called How to Enjoy Your Job, because I'd gone through all of these things and I thought, well, if I can learn how to enjoy my job, maybe I'll be happy. So I wrote that book. I went to the library and I read a lot of self-help books, and I tried to understand how you could discover what you wanted to do with your life, but also how you could change your life. So I did that research and wrote that book, and then I was like, well, how do I get it published? I just want to get it into the world, and couldn't get a publishing deal. Well, I got one rejection from one agent, and then I went, oh, not going to bother with that, I'll self-publish. So I started self-publishing. This was back in 2008. And again, made a lot of mistakes, expensive mistakes. I printed books. This was before the Kindle. This was before print on demand. We can go into those things. And essentially, and at that point, I learned about marketing. So I learned about how to get on TV, made it onto TV, onto radio, but I didn't sell any books. And so it was at that point, so this is end of 2008, I started to learn about blogging, and that's when things really took off. So I started to understand that traditional media was not the way forward, and by learning about blogging, podcasting, videos, and then the Kindle came out, and then that's the beginning of the successful phase of my business career.
So this is interesting. So you wrote a book on how to enjoy your job, even though you weren't enjoying your job, but you went and researched how to do it, and you wrote a book. So how what was the length of that book? How much did you write?
Oh, it's about 50,000 words. Wait, just ask me that question again. I'll wave one at you.
Sure.
This is that. So, yeah, so the book's about 55,000 words, but I've actually just recently rewritten it. You can see here.
Career
It's now
Change,
called
okay.
Career Change. It's called Career Change. The first, and I don't have a copy of the old version. I rewrote this in 2012 based on the fact that I have changed my career. But when I wrote it back in 2008, the original one, it's about 50,000 words. And essentially I read all the books on, what color is your parachute and all of that, and distilled it down into a process. And then I followed that process. So very much the first book that people write is often the book that will change their life, their own life, not everybody else's life. So that book, basically I followed that process, but the main thing that book did was lead me to self-publishing, Kindle, blogging, and the online environment. But people can get Career Change now.
Hey, so
It's available now.
yeah. So the what I want to talk about is I'm interested in this story. So you still had that IT contract job, and you wrote this while you had that job, correct? So you wrote your first writing endeavor was a 50,000 word book, right? So what was your writing experience until that point? How did you make that decision to just jump in and write a 50,000 word book when
I really think that anyone who does a business job, anyone who does a modern job, writes a lot. So as a consultant, I was writing white papers, I was writing all kinds of things, manuals and training and, all the things that we write as consultants, and most people do in an office job. They write stuff. And all you really need to write a non-fiction book is the mind to organize the material, and then organize it into chapter headings and then fill in the blanks. So anyone with specialist knowledge already can write a non-fiction book, and anyone who wants to gain specialist knowledge can write a non-fiction book. I really don't think it's that hard. You just structure it with a table of contents and then you write it, and then you get it edited and all of that. But essentially it's not that difficult to write a non-fiction book. It's difficult to write a non-fiction book that sells. The sales side is very hard, but I really don't see much of an issue with writing a non-fiction book. Now, we can come back to fiction. That's a very different question, but writing non-fiction was not difficult. It was more about structuring. But I did write it while I was working, so I would get up at sort of 5 a.m., work for an hour before work, because you probably know, you're knackered when you come home from work. So I would get up early in the morning, and then at the weekend I would also work on that. So it took me about 7 or 8 months of mornings and weekends, and that's the point I went to 4 days a week as well, because I had to make space in my life for changing my life, basically.
So did you write this book when you were still living in New Zealand?
I was in Australia at that point.
You were in Australia. Okay, so yeah, the point. There's a bit of a time lag, but as long as I can hear your voice, it's fine. I think one of the insights that has come out of these interviews with people such as yourself is that you people usually start off with the side business. They don't quit their corporate jobs cold turkey and start a business. But what comes with that is a lot of sacrifice, and I think you just described it, right? So wake up at 4 a.m., come back in the morning, come back later, right? Evenings, weekends, whatever it is, right? So that's something I wanted to point out and make people understand that if you want to do a side business, there's a lot of sacrifices involved. There's a lot of things that you need to cut off from your life. Did you do a lot of scuba diving while writing that book?
No. No, I wasn't scuba diving by then. I was pretty much trying to really focus on this. What I did give up though, and what we got rid of at that point, was the television. So I haven't had a television for 5 years now, and I love it. I love not having a TV, because when you don't have a TV, your default position is either learning, reading, blogging, or consuming content in a different way, and also producing. So my productivity went up incredibly from going 4 days a week, in which case I was sacrificing 20% of my income, and getting rid of TV and basically using that extra time, and also sacrificing a bit of sleep. But equally, I really curtailed my social life, and this was at a point where I'd been doing a I hated for kind of 10 years, and I was really not happy to continue doing it anymore. Yeah. So I was focused on getting out of the job at that point.
Yeah, and another thing that comes through, in your story is your persistence, which I think is important. If someone wants to get out of their jobs, their corporate jobs, you have to be persistent, right? It's not easy. Yeah, so we stopped at persistence. So I just want to move on to you wrote that book, and you started marketing it, and you made those mistakes. You went to TV, and talk about that phase of what you did to market and sell that book.
Well, at that point, it was before I knew anything about blogging or the internet. And again, I thought that marketing meant traditional media. So I did press releases and, learned how to do that kind of traditional media. Mm-hmm. So essentially and I did courses. This is all self-taught, as you know. I bought internet courses and books on traditional marketing. So I did press releases. I got on national TV in Australia, national radio, national newspapers. I did what I thought was exactly the right thing to do when it comes to selling things, in the way that everyone tells you, if you make it onto national TV, you're going to sell loads of books. Mm-hmm. I sold about 15 books, 15 books.
After being on national TV and newspapers and magazines and all that. Wow, that's quite an insight. So it doesn't always work.
It's just useless. No, it doesn't work at all. And my belief still is that traditional media is very good for brand management and brand awareness, but it's no good for direct sales, because, of course, there's a very big gap between somebody seeing you on TV and clicking on your website to buy now. Mm-hmm. So, and even if you're in every bookshop in the country, the chances of that person stumbling upon your book, is just very small. So after that, I was just so disillusioned with traditional media that I started looking online. And Australia, there's actually a really big blogging group. I'm sure you know, Yarrow Starak from Entrepreneur's Journey, mm-hmm. Pro blogger Darren Rouse. Mm-hmm. There's a community of bloggers in Australia who work the American market mainly. So I was looking at these guys, and at that point I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start blogging, because online, online, if somebody sees you, there's often a link, and they can click the link, so that the difference, or this space between them learning about you and buying something is much smaller. And at that point, I gave up completely on traditional media and started to learn about blogging. So that's when I pretty much changed my view. And it was also at that point that Amazon released the Kindle, and also that print on demand became a more mainstream technology.
Okay, so what were your projects from then on? So you said September 2011, you started doing this full time, right? So how close were you to September 2011? What month and year was that when you started blogging?
December 2008, basically.
Okay, so talk us through. So what was your next project, and talk us through the successes and failures of that project.
Okay, well then the next project was basically learning blogging and learning about book marketing online. So I started a podcast, I started doing videos, I learned all about how to do self-publishing properly. Mm-hmm. So I learned how to publish on the Kindle, I learned how to use print on demand, how to do all of these things that you have to do as an independent author. And then I started teaching other people. So my site, The Creative Pen, at the beginning, of course, had no traffic whatsoever, had nobody. But I just wanted to share the lessons I learned. So I started blogging. I started interviewing people on my podcast, just like you're doing, and networking with people online. And basically just started to try and teach what I was learning, which is a good internet marketing model, is to teach what you already know to other people. And I've got various incarnations of those courses, but essentially I started then, and I still have, and I update them. Obviously, I have new courses quite regularly, but I do online video and audio and text-based products, multimedia products, basically, that you can find at thecreativepen.com/store. So you can see loads there. I've got about 9 or 10 courses that I sell now. So that was something I focused on. But at the same time, I started writing fiction. So here's my my first novel, Pentecost. And in fact, the opening scene is Varanasi on the Burning Ghats. Yeah, so I love India. It's one of my favorite countries. And I'd done a trip to India, to Varanasi, and I had an idea. So, and I thought by that point I had this blog and it was getting quite popular, and I was a non-fiction author, and I thought, I'm just maybe I should try and write some fiction so I can blog about it. It was never, I'm gonna write fiction in order to sell fiction. It was, maybe I'll just blog about the difficulties of writing fiction, because I never thought I could write fiction. It was a total dream. But I'm a massive reader. I love reading. I read all the time. It's like my number one hobby. So I started writing Pentecost in NaNoWriMo. If people don't know, that's National Novel Writing Month. Mm-hmm. You can find it at nanowrimo.org. Okay. And basically I wrote 20,000 words of a story. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I love this. This is it. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to write fiction. Wow. And and I was just like, this is fantastic. And now there's Prophecy and there's Exodus and there's more books coming out. I've got a big launch coming up this week with some short stories, which is exciting. I've got my 4th novel coming out. So essentially that kind of took off. And so that's the fiction side. And then at the same time, I started being asked to speak about self-publishing and writing and stuff. So I learned how to be a professional speaker. So essentially now my income is split between fiction sales and a few non-fiction sales, but mainly fiction sales, selling multimedia products, and professional speaking. And that's where I am now, basically. That's what I am. And I call myself an author entrepreneur because I don't make all my money from fiction. I make it in a combination. But I love that because it means I have the digital, I have the writing, but I also have the speaking.
This is great. So I really like, love the way you said, you described your aha moment. I'm meant to do fiction. I'm meant to write fiction. This is great. A lot of people I speak with, again, a lot of successes come from just doing random side projects without any idea of turning that into a business. I think one of the things of having an entrepreneurial mindset is that of experimentation. Like you constantly keep experimenting. Sometimes you don't even know. Sometimes you don't even have that idea that, okay, I'm going to make this into a business, but you experiment. And, eventually one of those things invariably becomes a business. You just stumble onto it. So this is exactly what you described. And, your one of your experiments, that is writing fiction, turned into, it gave you that aha moment. So I just find that amazing. That's congratulations. That's such a great story. And that's what I want people to, understand while watching interviews on the show, that, sometimes you just have to experiment. You just have to do things on the side, random. And, it happens. You will get
absolutely. That. And from from the business point of view, people might be going, oh yeah, fair enough, but where's the money in that? Mm-hmm. But now with Amazon Kindle, with Kobo, with iBookstore, with being able to self-publish online, we get around 70% royalty, which is a lot more than most authors have ever been able to earn before. So I've sold about 55,000 books now of my fiction, and between 2.99 and 4.99. So essentially, you end up making a pretty good living every month. And what is really exciting about this, and I want you to get this, because this is the problem with the digital environment and the problem with the non-fiction technological environment, is everything we do ages. So for example, if you make digital courses like I do as well, you have to update them in a year because Facebook's changed or technology's changed or WordPress has changed.
Yeah.
But this book, I can sell this book for the rest of my life, and 70 years after my death, my heirs can make money from this book, and it doesn't age. People are still reading fiction that was written hundreds of years ago. And I've just been reading James Herbert again, who published in the 70s. The main thing that dates is like technology, like cell phones and stuff. But you can read these books forever, and there's no need to update them. So if you think about scalable income, which is what we all want, right?
Mm-hmm.
You make it once and you sell it forever. The fiction book in particular, is the best scalable product you can possibly have, because once you've got it, once you've written it and it's finished and it's edited and it's out there, this can make money forever. So that's another thing. It's like it doesn't matter if it makes $100 a month. It makes $100 a month for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
So that I want people to really grasp that idea. It's amazing.
That's great. That's a nice distinction you made of fiction and all the other courses and non-fiction stuff that you talked about. A fiction piece is timeless, which is great. It's a fantastic business model. You also talked about what I want to dive into a little deeper about the whole self-publisher's business model. You call yourself an author and an entrepreneur. That's what that's where the author sort of model is heading into, right? I mean, traditional publishers are few and far between. Everybody's not going to get a deal. I think if you want to write a book, the way to go right now is self-publishing and having other sort of revenue streams that can get you that income. Talk about that a little bit, of how the whole landscape is changing.
Well, I mean, I was actually at the London Book Fair the other week, and that is like the bastion of the industry. And I actually spoke at the book fair, and I've been speaking at the Guardian, and been speaking at Bloomsbury, and these are very big publishing industry establishments that are letting people like me, self-published authors, in now, because you're right, the industry is changing, and the publishers who get it are really getting it, and they're actually embracing self-published authors, and a lot of agents and publishers are picking up successful self-published authors.
And big publishing houses, sorry to interrupt, but big publishing houses do have self-publishing divisions within them now, right? Where they have...
They do, and don't go anywhere near them, is what I would say.
Why?
Don't go anywhere near Author Solutions okay, so in terms of self-publishing, just some, well, I guess we'll come to the tips, but the big one is a lot of people are out there to rip you off as a self-publisher, and that's why, people should come to my website where for free, I tell you what you can do to make it work without those services. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of people are trying to rip authors off. But in terms of the business model, essentially you work as an entrepreneur, you hire freelancers, you hire a freelance editor, freelance designer. That's really all you need, and then you can upload your books with the Amazon KDP, with Kobo Writing Life, with the iBookstore, with Smashwords or BookBaby, none of whom charge you for putting your book out there. Mm-hmm. And then you get paid every month basically from Amazon, which is brilliant. So essentially that model means that you can make more consistent income than with a traditional publishing deal, where you sometimes get an advance which comes in, and then you may never see another penny, basically, because of the way royalties work, or you may get a random check at some point. But what this does is empowers the author to get their work out there. So as soon as you've had your book professionally edited, professionally designed, you can upload it on Amazon, and it's for sale within 24 hours. And that's just radical, because in the past it's taken 18 months to 2 years to get a book out there. And also with print on demand, which is where you essentially you upload a digital file of your book. When a customer orders one copy is printed and sent to that customer, and you get the money that's left over that you've set basically as your profit. That means you can sell print books anywhere in the world as well without having to have them in your house. So what has completely changed in the last few years is that people are buying more and more books online and more books in a digital fashion, and that will only continue to grow over time.
So, can I ask you, you showed me 3 of your print books, your fiction books. Why do you print books when it's so easy to publish them online and get a big chunk of revenues? What's the value in that?
Well, one, the value is you can put a profit on it. So I make the same on every print book as I do on every ebook. So I can still do that. That's print on demand. So
Yep.
I only have about 5 copies of these books.
Okay.
Secondly is giveaways. A lot of giveaways you do, people want print books. Third is review copies. A lot of reviewers want print books. Fourth is with non-fiction specifically. So my career change book, people really do want non-fiction in print. So I sell this predominantly sells in print. Although it also sells on Amazon, I sell a lot more in print because people want to actually have a non-fiction book to go back to again and again.
Yeah.
Whereas fiction is more like candy. It's more, people eat it.
I don't care what people say. I just love holding a book in my hand. I love my Kindle and I love my Kobo and everything, but there's nothing like actually having a physical book. But it's old-fashioned, but still.
No. Exactly, and I think understanding your ego as an author is really important. And ego is another reason why we want a print book, is to give it to your mum and say, "Here, Mum, here's what I made," And no, so having a print book is good, but I would advise anyone who wants to do print to do print on demand.
Okay. The video is getting choppier and choppier, so before I lose you again, I'm gonna ask you for if someone watching this, if they want to get into self-publishing, can you give me 3 specific actions they should take to get into self-publishing if they want to self-publish their book?
Sure. So the first thing to do is to research, is to make sure you understand what you're doing. And of course, at my site at thecreativepenn.com/resources, there's a whole load of free stuff that will help you understand that, because that's the way you avoid the entrapment of some of the things that are around right now. So that's one. And there's loads of blogs and loads of authors sharing their stuff online. So definitely do your research. The second one would be to always hire professional editing and professional cover design. Those 2 things are really important because the quality of self-published books have to be as good as traditionally published books. So it's very important to definitely do that. And then the third thing would pretty much be to understand marketing as well as writing and publishing. Because what often happens with self-published authors is their book goes up on Amazon, they're really excited, and they don't sell any at all, and then they're disappointed and unhappy. And this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a hard work, like any business, it's hard work. So definitely learn about marketing. All kinds of internet marketing is exactly the same for any small business. All the stuff that anyone on your show talks about is valid for book publishing as well. So those are probably my 3 tips.
So on the second tip, you talked about cover design, professional editing, professional cover design. Where do you find such people?
I get through recommendations, so very much networking with other authors. I've got recommended lists on my site, /editors/book cover design. A lot of us, but if you find a book you like, have a look on the acknowledgements, and you'll often find the editor and the book cover designer listed there as well. So that's really good. Google is your friend, but generally recommendations from other authors is a really good thing.
Okay. Joanna, so thank you so much for your time. This has been so insightful and so much fun talking to you about your story. If people want to get in touch with you, where do they go?
So thecreativepenn.com, and that's pen with a double N. And I'm on Twitter at thecreativepenn. Just get hold of me there. Twitter's probably my favorite social network.
Yeah, I know you've got almost 30,000 tweets. I mean, just as a side note, how do you tweet so much? Where do you find the time to tweet so much?
A lot of it is scheduling. That's a secret. I use Buffer app and I schedule a lot, but it's after Google, it's my number one traffic source. So I really like Twitter. It's a great social network, and most of the people I meet on Twitter. So don't know how you heard about me, but it possibly was from Alexis.
Yeah,
Grant.
it was Alexis Grant.
Yeah, so I met Alexis on Twitter about 3 years ago, and we've done a lot of business together. So the things that the people you meet on Twitter are often the basis to things that can happen in like the real world. So yeah, I highly recommend Twitter as a social network. But yeah, tweet me, and I have a podcast as well, and I'm on YouTube. My interviews are on YouTube, so The Creative Pen on both of those too.
That's great. So Joanna, maybe I'd love to have you back and just do a marketing session with you on how to market your ebook. So
yeah, no worries.
So thank you so much, Joanna, for your time. I think you've delivered so many great insights. I'm sure people are going to start following you and learning so much from you. And I'm going to take a look at your resources page as soon as I hang up.
Thanks so much for having me, Fahim.
Thank you, Joanna. Take care.